Hey, welcome to Aftermath, Overcoming What's Left Behind. In each episode, my friend Tom Fallon and I, Theresa Reiff, we want to normalize the conversation about sexual abuse. We want to share hope and joy through our topical conversations. You know, both Tom and I, we've overcome the effects of sexual abuse in our lives, and we each wrote a book about it. We wrote about how God helped us overcome it. We want to invite you to listen and join us as we share our personal struggles and victories. You know, when we were facing our abuse and working through it, boy, it wasn't an easy process. But I'll tell you this, it was worth it. So Tom and I, we want to share in your journey with you because we truly, honestly believe and personally know that you can find hope and joy in the aftermath of sexual abuse.
Today on Overcoming the Aftermath of Sexual Abuse, we're going to discuss relationships and its impact on relationships. I am pleased to introduce my beautiful wife. My beautiful wife. Her name's Kellie Fallon. We've been married for 30-ish. 2 years-ish. Yeah. Oh. Right, ish. Sorry. So we're going to talk about relationships today. And we have Theresa and, again, Kellie. So go for it.
Yeah. We're going to talk through how sexual abuse has affected our relationships, maybe good and bad, you know, and we're going to talk just about generic relationships and how sexual abuse can affect really every level of our relationships. And relationships start from the very beginning of our lives, right? We're born or adopted into a family and we have relationships with our parents. It starts there. So, boy, that can get complicated pretty quick. I mean, we're parents, we know.
Right.
Everything we do actually does matter. And for me, I was sexually abused by my own father. So it didn't start out so fantastic for me as far as understanding what healthy relationships really are. How about you, Tom? What it was like for you in your childhood as far as your initial relationships in life? What was that like?
I would have to say that my relationships were tough. I mean, like with my parents type of thing. My mom was did the best she could possibly do. Mm-hmm. But my father was challenging. He was a difficult man to deal with. But you know, my brother, I had 5 brothers and sisters, so there was a pretty big household of people. So there was always something going on, something to think about, or something else to experience. Mm-hmm. I don't know that the sexual abuse impacted my brother and myself a little bit, you know what I mean? So it did have an impact on that, but that was all positive, you know. Even though my brother was unable to really do anything for me, he tried. Mm-hmm. Out of everybody, he's the only one that tried, you know. So I mean, how could I argue? That was a blessing to me that my brother tried. He went to bat for me. You know, he did the best he could.
Yeah.
That type of thing.
Yeah. I was the oldest. I have a sister and a brother younger than me. My sister's 2 years younger. My brother's 4 years younger than me. And my brother actually will tell people that I raised them, which is sad and funny all at the same time. I used to actually carry that around. Like, I failed completely because I wasn't meant to be a parent right away. So I tell people I don't think I was ever a kid. I don't remember playing and enjoying that. I can remember even with my own girls, them trying to get me to play Barbies with them. I'm just not good at pretend. And I think that's why. I think it's because I just was so right into adult. I've been an adult. I don't think I've ever been a kid. I don't know. I've had to learn how to enjoy just letting go and laughing and having fun instead of everything having to be about, you know, control and care and surviving. Because I think that's what I was on that wheel of just surviving.
Which is a direct result,
Definitely.
Aftermath of your abuse.
Absolutely.
Changed everything for you.
It did.
Right.
Yeah. And at one point I didn't remember. God really protected me, that I didn't remember what had happened to me through high school. And God really showed me a picture of the fact that at one point later on, but showed me a picture of the fact that he was really covering my thoughts, and that was why I couldn't remember what had happened to me. And what's miraculous about that is that gave me the time through high school where I really developed a relationship with God all on my own. And I know that if I had had the abuse in the middle there, trying to figure that all out as a kid, as a high schooler, you know, and trying to find Jesus, I don't know how that would have worked out. But that was his way of protecting me so that I could have a relationship with Jesus, which is, by the way, as far as relationships go, my most important. I think it's yours too.
It is.
How about you, Kellie? Do you feel like that's your most important?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Tom and I and Kellie, we wouldn't be sitting here today getting the opportunity to share with you guys if we didn't have Jesus in our lives. I truly believe that, because I honestly would have committed suicide in high school if I hadn't not remembered what had happened to me. So, yeah. Anyways, family relationships, we can move on to, sometimes those were complicated, weren't they? I think our next relationships in life probably become school, when we go off to school. We get teachers, and you had coaches, right? And then we have friends in school.
I had a lot of coaches playing sports. I was always involved in some sort of sport.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry about my voice. So I was always involved in a sport. So I've always had coaches, but there's only that one that's ever stepped out of line. That was my brother's coach.
Do you remember any one particular coach that had the most positive influence?
Well, like I remember Mr. Hernowitz.
Oh.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
He's really positive. I don't really remember anybody coming up and putting a hand on my shoulder and saying, "Hey, man, you're a good boy. You're going to be all right." Whatever it was. I don't really remember anybody except for Mrs. Mobbs. We talked about Mrs. Mobbs, my doctor's wife.
Oh.
Yeah, she was a blessing to me,
Yeah. Let's tell them a little about why was she such a blessing? What did she do?
I think she knocked things over in the house and asked me to come over and pick it up, and stuff like that. She's just a beautiful woman, and I spent time with me, gave me a Bible, talked about stuff like that. I didn't have a whole lot of people. I had people in my neighborhood that would take me to church with them and stuff like that. I was always seeking for somebody to take me along with them. That's Kellie and I. We got together to read the Bible together. That's how we were connected first.
Wow.
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
God's always been there for me. I know that. Even through, people say, "Where was God?" Well, God was right there with me, man, because it could have been so much worse for me.
Yeah. That's right.
It could have been so much worse. I know he had my hand, he had my back, he had everything about me. He's like, "I'm going to use this, Tom. I'm going to use this." You went through it, but I'm going to use it. I said, okay.
I know in my life I'm the same way, where I can see people all along the way that God placed there to show me just compassion and kindness. And, where it was, by the time I was 13, we had moved 16 times. So some years we moved twice. But I can remember at each place there was one in particular person that God really placed there for me, whether it was like a neighbor across the street who would have all three of us over after school because she knew we were by ourselves and we were little. And she would make cookies and just be welcoming. I mean, I don't even know if she, I don't remember her name, but I know that she, she graciously had us over there, and she didn't have to. She wasn't our relative. She wasn't our aunt. She wasn't our grandmother, but she saw a need there, and she was an angel. I really can look back and see how God brought people into my life all along the way that reminded me really of that God loved me, really.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Like my next door neighbor, like I said, it was just Mrs. Mobbs, but no, Mr. Soda's the chief police of Burlington at one time. His mother was from Chicago or something. She used to come over and would go to church,
Aww.
So there's always been people in my life that, if I thought about it, that take me to church and care about me spiritually. That was a blessing, to have someone care about you spiritually. I really benefited from that greatly.
Yeah. And I would just encourage anybody listening, if you are hearing this and you don't really feel like there have been those people for you along the way, I would just encourage you to ask God to show you who those people were. Because I can bet that there are some people there. And maybe you just don't remember them. Because I know for me, as I've recovered my memories, sometimes, actually when Tom and I we've had discussions getting ready for the podcast. And I've had things come back to me that I'm like, wow, I haven't remembered that in so long. And so I would just encourage you to sit back and maybe spend some time quiet. It's not easy in the lives we lead these days to spend time really actually quiet, but I highly encourage it because things miraculous happen in that quiet with God. Really, really do.
And that goes back to what we were saying the other day. You have a plan. I mean, sit down and think about who's been a blessing to you. Because life can't be all that bad. And even if it's bad, You got to rejoice about something. Find something to be positive about. Anything. Sitting here today for me is like a bucket list accomplishment.
So awesome.
Yeah.
If you're breathing, it's something to be thankful for.
Yeah, thankful you have breath.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it'll get bigger and bigger. You have more things to be thankful about.
So let's put Kellie on the spot now because we've been talking for a while.
Can I be on that spot too with her?
Yes,
Okay.
of course. I mean, y'all are together, so
Yeah.
let's do that. Oh, I said y'all. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so what do you think, Kellie, was the biggest thing from Tom's abuse that affected your marriage or your relationship? How did that affect you guys?
That's a great question. Well, our relationship began because of his abuse.
Oh,
because he
that.
had a longing to know God better. He had heard that I was a girl who read her Bible and went to Bible studies and knew something more than he knew, and he wanted to learn. And he called me up and asked if I would teach him something. He told me in that very first phone call he didn't trust the men of the church to teach him, and would I teach him?
Wow.
Of course, I did not think that's what he wanted from me. but I agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that was the very beginning, the first conversation that he explained that he didn't trust, and he wanted to know God better. So,
did he explain actually why he didn't trust men, or was it just kind of like you just took it at face value? And
I took it at face value, and
awesome.
he eventually told me more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
certainly not at first.
Do you remember that conversation, Tom?
Yes, I do.
Were you really on the up and up?
It was Friday, 13th of March, right? It was. And I know it was. Was I
That's
what?
awesome. Were you really on the up and up? Did you really just want to read the Bible together? I mean,
Yes.
I just think that's just an honest question.
So I thought I told her a little bit more about, like, in my experience, yes, I sensitive towards being around other men. So I'd feel much more comfortable if I could look at you. Explain the Bible to me, what you know.
Yeah.
And I'm thankful that she agreed to.
Yeah.
So
And Kellie still reads a lot about the Bible, right? You still read the Bible a ton, Kellie, right? Tom brags about that.
Oh, yeah.
About you.
45
brags
times?
on that. Yeah.
44, 45.
Yeah, so we've decided that you must know more about the Bible than we do. Because I still get surprised. I still read the Bible and I'm like, oh.
Well, she still gets surprised.
I could swear I read that, but wow. So I still get surprised, which is awesome.
It's so good that it's new every time.
It's so good. It's so
Yes.
good. Really helps us. What do you think is the key? Because you've said you were married over 30-ish years, and Joel and I have been married 25 years. That was actually this past year. And so we've been married for a long time, too. Thank you. And somewhat miraculously, I can remember never thinking I was going to get married. I just... Literally, God told me you're going to marry him at one point about Joel, and I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm not marrying anybody, because I never thought I could trust someone. I just never thought I could. But we're all still married, so y'all are still married, and we're still married. So what do you think is the biggest key? Like, what has kept you married? Let's just we want to help you guys stay married.
Oh, you're asking me? I would say the thing that has kept Kellie and me married is Kellie. She's just so kind. And she's just so loving, and she's just so generous with her love. And it's like I've dropped the ball so many times, and just think about myself for too long and stuff. And she's just always willing to bring me back, or to show me where I should be, or where the relationship should be. Plus, we date every week.
I love that about you guys.
Yeah.
Your dates are amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kellie? What do you think is the best what keeps you kind of like going and together and
Understanding what marriage is and what it isn't. It isn't a thing that you stay in until you're no longer happy or no longer fulfilled, and then you call it quits. For us, it is a I can say it now, it's a lifelong commitment, because I didn't think that at one point, and divorced him and then remarried him.
I love that story. It's amazing.
It's another story for another day.
Okay.
So we've actually been divorced
From each other.
from each other.
And then married each other back.
Yes.
Super cool.
So
Okay,
we going
so
to-
then starting now,
Yeah.
I think
But I love
that
it
it's a
for that.
lifelong thing, and just what keeps us together is
Today.
knowing that there is no out. It's something that you work on. Nobody gets married to be miserable. You get married to be happy and fulfilled and loved and honored and cherished.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So knowing that there is no end or way out if you're not being fulfilled, it really makes you say, well, let's make sure this is going to be wonderful. Let's put the hard work in.
Yeah.
And then it's not hard work. Then it's
And
just
one of the
second
things you
nature.
guys do, though, to do that is you have your date nights. Do you want to tell
do.
us just a little bit about your date nights?
Sure.
Just so that we get that explanation, because it was kind of a teaser, and I want to know, because I follow them on Facebook. It's actually how Tom and I got to know each other, because I started watching what they do in their marriage, and my husband would bring me and show me his phone and Kellie's posts about
probably
all
showed
the
you
crazy
Kellie's
fun
nights.
stuff. And so I started following Kellie because I was like, I need to see these posts all on my own because she's the funniest person, and everyone needs to laugh. You guys, that is just my gift to you. You need to laugh in
Laughter.
life. And so then Tom and I got to know each other through Facebook. That's how this is actually all happened, is because Kellie is one of the funniest people I know. So anyways, tell me about your date nights. Let's
Wow,
go
I feel
there.
like I'm going to disappoint a whole bunch of people.
No. She's really funny. Yeah, find her on Facebook. She's hilarious.
I think we even went on dates when we were divorced.
Or Instagram. I don't know. Are you on Instagram too?
I am.
Yeah. Okay. I keep saying only Facebook.
So,
Because I'm old.
so date nights are a really wonderful time for us to set aside even just 2 hours. It's usually 4 hours, but even just 2 hours to be in front of each other without a telephone or without children or without anything else. Even if we've been mad at each other, even if he is the last person that I want to spend alone time with, that's when that's when you need to be there
That's
the
right.
most.
Yeah.
Sometimes things build up. You don't have the chance to discuss things that happen during the week, and those are on the bad times. On the great times, it's just so nice to have a new experience with your best friend every week, and to make sure that you make that priority, and then we make it fun.
Yeah. I love that.
You're
Did
right,
you have
sweetie.
something you were going to say?
Well, I was thinking about something earlier, obviously. And very well said, Gil.
Yeah. Good job, guys.
Thanks, babe.
Way to do
Yeah.
date nights.
One thing is that we consider our marriage to be a ministry to others.
I love that.
And we always want to point to God and say,
In your relationship.
look what he's
Yeah.
done for me.
Yeah.
I don't deserve her.
Yeah. Yeah, because it is miraculous.
that's true.
By the
Well, maybe I do. I don't know.
yeah, I think you do. I think you guys are awesome.
I know I really
together.
don't deserve her.
I think that by the world standards, though, like by the, we can look at the cup as like half empty rather than half full. And I think that's one thing you guys do. I think you're good at looking at each other. Like, you're the perfect person for me,
She is.
even if we're not perfect, because none of us are perfect. But how do you think how does forgiveness plays out? I feel like in our marriage, that's the number one thing that I had to learn to do better because of my past. I think that I wasn't good at forgiving, and really understanding forgiveness is really, really a deep subject. And we'll do this on a different podcast. We'll talk about forgiveness, but just in marriage, I found forgiveness is a daily thing. Like, it's not just, because it's kind of like, just an example for us is I want things picked up. And for some reason, laundry is still on the floor on Joel's side of the bed. And so I set a hamper there because I was like, well, if you're going to lay it somewhere, lay it in the hamper. And that way, the dirty clothes belong in there, not on the floor, like, "Argh." And I think you can very easily let those things get to you, where it's just who Joel is. And of course, I tried the hamper thing, and that didn't really work. And so, because now the clothes are like all around the hamper, and the hamper just still sitting there. But it
Try
kind of
getting more hampers.
like, come on. Just the whole side of his
He's
bed,
bound to hit it.
one big hamper, and I love him. So that has to be my first. That has to be my starting point and my stopping point. And I think that everything sandwiched in the middle, it just has to fall into forgiveness. Because if I don't forgive him for just being himself, right? Like he'll say to me, I tried. I put one thing in there, and he'll be like, but I was tired and you were asleep already and the room was dark. And so, so I think the habit now that we have, it's really literally a habit for us is forgiving each other.
Right.
And we don't even have to talk about it. Like I don't have to go to him every time he drops something on the floor and say, really? I forgive you. It's become a kind of a blanket of forgiveness because it can be constant. I think sometimes bigger things come up, right? Things you can say to your spouse stick longer, right? Do you guys ever have that? Do you ever have anything that's more of a trigger for you, right, with forgiveness? Because I think for you could have stuff that could trigger maybe your past or maybe something that is something in you that's an aftermath, right, of abuse. Do you have anything that you feel like Kel can poke at you and that hurts more than other things that you can think of?
Regarding abuse?
Just in your relationship or yeah. We're going to put Kellie on the hot seat, kind of.
Does Kellie? Kellie's an amazing person.
So she doesn't have anything that she says that like gets you?
If she wants to. I think if Kellie, I don't even know if she ever has, but I know Kellie well enough to know that if she wanted to get me, she has plenty of material. Right?
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to get me.
Yeah.
She wants to nurture me, protect me, make me strong, or help me be strong.
So in answer to the question that you asked me before, how does forgiveness play a part? In a couple different ways. I had a very typical upbringing, loving parents, caring, nurturing, who forgave each other plenty for all the little things that happen in marriages, and they modeled that. So growing up, if you did something wrong, you asked for forgiveness, or if somebody did something to you and they asked for forgiveness, you gave it to them. So I went into the marriage being forgiving, and then being young, stubborn or whatever, things get in your way, but getting to know God more and how he has forgiven us, really the model how to forgive others.
Yeah.
How could I not forgive him for something when I have been forgiven?
That's good, Kellie.
There's two things that come to
mind. I thought
mind.
about that for about 3 minutes, so thanks for the time.
So we talked about forgiveness is very important. I'm going to lay it out in a second for you, but so I'll just lay it out now because I don't remember the other thing. So let me think. Oh, okay. So forgiveness was so important to me that looking back through time, forgiveness was a moment that changed everything because I forgave the guy. So I forgave the guy and moved on.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is so important in overcoming, in the aftermath of overcoming sexual abuse.
Yeah. What I
Because
love...
I don't want to forgive the guy. I don't want to.
That's right.
But I knew it was for me.
Yeah.
I got to take care of myself.
Forgiveness is for you.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I think when we don't forgive, we keep a connection to that thing. We keep a connection to that ugly thing. And that connection can actually get in the way of what God can do for us.
Right.
Because we can't fully then connect to him if we're still connected to those ugly things. And so the minute we forgive, it's like we cut that cord to the old things that happen and we get another space in our heart that we can connect to God. And that just gives us the ability then to stay in a marriage relationship, to stay in, because we have God in our lives connecting with us, then we can make good connections and healthy connections with other people. And I love what you said. That really exactly ties in that's why we can forgive, is because God forgave us and sent his son for us. And so then we can go on and learn to forgive other people so that we can be in good relationship with people and with God. Then.
So that's why I don't feel as though I brought much of Mr. Evil into my relationship with Kellie. Because I was already done.
Yeah.
I feel like I was clean. Like,
that's awesome.
Nothing, I didn't have to bring it.
Yeah.
She shared it with me and helped me in the aftermath of that sexual abuse. figure out stuff and champion me along the way. But it didn't. I don't feel as though that it had a great impact on our relationship. It was like a surface, like something emotionally, like emotional things are whacked anyways, but emotionally she's always been there for me, so she didn't have to like deal with the other stuff, but there's parts of it that she helped me with, obviously, but ultimately it was already gone out of my life. It was more like a memory, or like a bruise. I just go back to the bruise. So that forgiveness is so important, and I can see her forgiving me often when my voice rises or whatever. So forgiveness is very important in a relationship. One of the most important things. Yeah,
I agree. I think for Joel and I had to also decide. I had to decide to forgive him, and for things that he would do, so that I could let go of those. And I also had to decide that he wasn't the person that abused me. And so sometimes I feel like at the beginning, especially of our relationship, that I assumed things about who he was based on my past understanding of who men were for me.
Gotcha.
And so I had to work on that for sure. That was layers and layers and layers. And then when I finally just decided to trust Jesus and trust him, and I think that was key for me, is that I realized, okay, Jesus, you sent Joel to me. God, you told me that we were supposed to get married. And so I'm going to just trust that you sent me someone that I can trust, And so, but that it was a decision. It really was a decision that I had to really settle it in myself. And even then, when some things would come up, I'd have to go, no. Like self-talk,
I've already made that decision. No,
self. We decided. We trust him. We trust him. And so I really did have to, it was a process. It still was I think it was a little more layers for me because it was my own father, and it was so long that I think I know that if you asked Joel and he was sitting here with me, like Kelly's sitting with you, I think that he would say, oh yeah, she definitely brought some stuff from the abuse into our relationship, because he's a man, and it was a man who abused me. And so I think that I had to really work on just identifying and making sure that I was, I guess, blaming the correct person, right? Like that they own that, not me. And then forgiveness, right? Then doing the forgiveness work. And then I think I was able to trust Joel. But yeah, it might have been just a weensy bit more complicated for me.
Well, I think I make things seem easy, but I mean, in what you were just saying, I remember a week or two ago, I was at the Italian thing in Boston there. I was in whatever that is, St. Anthony's Feast, and then like, oh man, it brought me, I could smell the guy smoking a cigar. It brought me right back to where I was when I was like 10 years old. I'm like, Like, so there's things that keep reminding you of it. So, like, there's a lot of, you said something that reminded me.
Ongoing forgiveness.
Yeah, there's ongoing forgiveness that needs to take place. And so I had to clean myself off of that for, like, it changed, it altered me for a second. I'm like, wait a second, I'm not that person. I'm not that guy. It doesn't matter to me like that. Like, like it's trying to matter to me. It doesn't matter to me like that. Hey, let me go smoke a cigar. No. But I'm just saying, like, yeah. I remembered that I forgave the guy.
That's right. But it could have the ability to pull you back in and keep you there.
It tries to.
It does.
It does try to.
Yeah, that definitely happens to me too.
Yeah.
And I've had nightmares for sure that have done that to me, and that I've had to kind of spend the day going, okay. And that takes me a day, though. It takes me a good day to just shake it off, because it's so real, right? Like the nightmare is so real, and I wake up like, and Joel's actually been just so great that way, because he'll let me tell him no matter what it is, and we talk it out, and he cries. Actually, I'm not really a crier. Maybe I should be, but I think it's because when I cry, it's just so ugly. So maybe it's vanity that keeps me from crying. That's a confession. Because it just, and I think I've always been afraid that I'll start and just completely fall apart into pieces and never come back, like just be stuck there. And so if you're a crier, good job. I'm proud of you, because I always want to be a crier. I'm just not. And so I've just kind of accepted that about myself. But in our relationship, Joel will cry for me. And that's actually just been really helpful. It's really been just kind of healing. Yeah, to know that he cares that much, that he would cry for what's happened to me. And so, and he doesn't really like bawl. He tears up. If he was here, he'd be like, well, I don't know if I really cry. He'd kind of do that man thing. They kind of do that. But I think that Jesus was a great example of relationships and what they look like and what our expectations can be. And what I love about him is when he was here on earth and when he took human form as God, he set up the first small group, and so he had 3 men in his small group that were like his closest guys that kind of went with him when he went to pray and went with him when he would step off and maybe just have a little step off. That sounded funny, but step away and have time to himself. He would kind of take those guys with him. But then he also had 12 guys altogether that included those 3. And then from there, he really went out and had the thousands, right? The hundreds, the thousands that he healed or that he helped along the way. And I just love that picture of really, we don't need as many people as we think we do, and so I think sometimes we tell ourselves, at least I know I've told myself this, so I shouldn't assume what everybody else tells themselves because a lot goes on up here. But I've told myself I have no people, like I don't have any friends, and we moved a lot, and I've still moved a couple of times as an adult. But the truth is God gives us our people. We just have to kind of open up and open our eyes and think, oh, actually that person, she's my person. I can trust her. I can tell her things and she won't tell anyone else. And I think we have to really pray and ask God to point out who those people are for us, because it's an important decision. We can choose to be in relationship with people and not be in relationship with people. And that was a huge thing for me to actually learn. I went through a time in my life where I had read a book, and I think it was called Enjoy Life by Marilyn Hickey. And I read this book, and in there she said, you can pick who your friends were. And I don't know, how dumb was I, but that was life-changing for me.
Yeah,
I was like, what? Wait, I can pick my friends? I don't have to just be friends with who... And I think it's because I'm an extrovert, so I just make friends with everybody. I'm like, oh yeah, you're my friend, you're my friend, you're my friend. But I had been burned a few times by friendships and where they weren't honest and they were going behind my back and, saying terrible things about me to whoever, and it wasn't going well for me. And learning that I could choose those friendships was huge for me. Just realizing, okay, God, you gave me my people. I have you. I have Joel. I have this person and that person, and I don't really need more than that. And it is actually hard for us to be in close relationships with more than three people that tight, right? That intimate, tell you everything. Share, you guys probably do, right? You probably share everything. You and Kel.
Except nothing.
She's your girl.
She's my girl, yeah, but we don't share steak.
Oh, that's not okay. They don't share steak. Yeah, because you just want all the steak.
No, because I'm a vegetarian.
Oh yeah.
But besides that,
you don't have to share your steak.
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually a good.
She's a
that's what Joel would say, because I love steak, and Joel would say, "What? Dang, you don't have to share steak?" Because I'm always like, "Oh, wait, you ordered steak. Can I just have a little piece?" He's like, "Why didn't you order steak?" I didn't want steak. I wanted chicken. He's like, "But you're gonna eat mine?" And I'm like, "Yeah." That's how we do things. I want a taste of everybody else's stuff. Why not? Then you don't have to order everything.
I'm not going out to dinner.
Just have a taste of yours and a taste of... You're not going out to dinner with me?
Yeah.
You're not a sharer. You don't share well.
Well, I don't have to.
I know. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah.
Good job, you, Kelly. I couldn't do it. Wait, you're vegetarian, though, so you eat eggs.
Pescatarian.
Do you eat eggs? You're pescatarian? Mm-hmm. So you eat eggs?
Yes.
I couldn't survive without eggs.
Fish.
That's my thing. Fish. I like fish, too. Yeah.
Okay. So, Kellie.
Moving on.
Hey, Kellie, what type of advice do you have for a woman who enters a relationship? Be candid. So, how difficult was it for you, or was it difficult for you at all to come up next to me and understand that I potentially had no idea of how it even impacts me? I mean, I don't really study myself. I study other people and stuff like that, but. Yeah, how's it been? How was it for you? Was it tough for you when you first found out? Did you? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
So you want to hear how it was for me when I found out, or you want me to give you advice?
I don't want advice.
Okay.
Can I say advice? Yeah, give me advice.
So no, you said advice for
people,
our listeners.
For people,
sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
a woman caught in the aftermath of
Sure.
her son, of her husband. Yeah. What is a piece of advice you'd give?
Well, I can only tell you what it was like for me.
Yeah.
Not having experienced anything like that, or even hearing of anything like that. It was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
I just had anger.
Mm.
anger and sorrow and unbelief that, not that just, bad things happen, when you're being brought up as a little girl, or at least for me, your mom and your dad would be like, oh, be careful, don't talk to that person or whatever, right? So you had a sense of, oh, there's danger somewhere out there in the world, but never confronting it. I couldn't imagine that would have happened to a little boy, So what I did is I didn't press you for information. I was super curious because I didn't know anything about it. But it wasn't my place to ask you questions. It was my place to be a soft place for you to land when you wanted to share something, and to not ever press, and to go into every conversation about it prayerfully, even just in my, like, Lord, help me through this conversation.
Right. Even how long?
So that's how I did it, and that's my advice, to prayerfully go on.
Right. Yeah, you've been tender about it. Even when we wrote about it,
Sure.
you were just tender about it. Like, you allowed me to say what I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's
You only
that's
pushed
when
me
I
a little bit.
That's when I learned the most about your abuse, is when you asked me to ghostwrite for you. I had to ask
Right.
real difficult questions in order to formulate, your story, and it felt like such an intrusion. But you were gracious.
How long was that process? The writing. Of it?
Well, there's a funny story for
You
you.
want to hear it? Okay. So I have a Kindle. You have Kindle? Okay. So my book's on Kindle.
Yeah, me too.
Fighting Through It. Oh, yeah. That's where I read it. That's where I read you. Oh, sorry, I didn't buy it.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so I read a book. I was at a New Year's Eve goal setting party, and I wrote down, write a book, and I wrote down, like, fight a fight, and run this many miles and stuff like that. And then I remembered, oh, I got a book on Kindle, how to write a book in a certain amount of time. So I'm like, I'm gonna do that.
Nice.
So I went and did it. And then Kellie says, hey, we did it in 60 days. Kellie and I did it in 60 days. So she's like, I used to just write the stories, and she would, like, straighten them out and put the proper English in there and all that.
That's
and spell the
awesome.
words right. And elaborate when I wouldn't elaborate stuff, she'd, like, try to get me to make things big. It's a 90-page book, and it's not like a
No, encyclopedia.
Yeah, so it's like if okay. So she was asking me questions about. Oh yeah, she was asking me a question about the book, right? Okay, yeah, that thing's growling.
Yeah.
So she asked me a question about, like, hey, what did the author say about this? So I went back in my Kindle, and I'm looking, how to write. I was reading all the titles, like how to write a book in 60 days, and I'm like, oh, it was 90. So we just wrote a book, and we wrote it was how to write a book in 90 days, anyways. So we did it in
But
60.
you wrote it in 60.
Yeah, because I thought it said 60. I got to do this in 60 days.
Overachiever. Check.
So yeah, so that's the story.
That's
about it.
amazing. Did you feel like the process was tiring at all?
It was
Did you hit
so
spots?
comforting.
Oh,
It might have been tiring, but it was just so, like, hey, I don't own this no more.
that's so good.
Yeah, I'm clear. I'm clean. Everybody write a
Yeah.
book. Write a book about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being in that with you, it was mentally exhausting.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Each time that we sat down, and we really dedicated a fair amount of each day to it.
Right. We cried together. It was tough.
Yeah.
But at the
Yeah.
end of each writing session, it was just one more weight off of his shoulder that I don't even know if you knew that.
No, I didn't know I was carrying it.
Because we talked about
Yeah.
previously, going into the relationship, you had dealt with it, so you didn't really carry much in. But talking specifics, it was still a weight on you.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know how
through
light
the
it could be.
process of writing the
I
book.
really didn't know. Yeah.
Yeah, you
That's
shed
awesome.
even more.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Like, people come up to me and say, hey, well, you were talking in your book. I was? Well, I said that? When did I go
Right.
through that? It's like,
It's almost
Kellie,
like it
what-
happened to
can
somebody
you
else
show
at
it
this
to me?
point,
Yeah.
because you had gone through it so
Right.
much.
Yeah.
it was
How about
just-
for you in your book?
In my book, similar in that I wrote it, but Joel was my editor, which, ooh, by the way, having my spouse as my editor, that was a little painful. That's different reasons. That's just like having your spouse go, I don't know, that wasn't worded right. I was like, come on. So I had to like walk away and just tell myself, he's my editor. He's my editor in this space. I think every chapter I wrote, though, I'm not a crier, but I did cry when I wrote my book. And it was out of gratefulness. It really was just out of like, wow, like, God, I was this way. I used to go through my days and add up all the things I had done wrong. So I was originally, my first job out of high school was in radio, which was a great spot for me. I loved it. But in my head, I would have this running list of all the mistakes I had made every single day. And I would keep them. I would literally hold on to them. And if I found myself in a day like enjoying myself, I would literally like go back to my desk kind of and pull myself back in and just say, yeah, okay, well, you're not supposed to be happy because you did all this earlier. And so I would literally beat myself up. This is how I lived. Like I literally lived that way. And one day in church, God just said to me, literally during worship, by the way, don't miss worship at your church because it's the best part. The message is awesome too, and I'm glad I stay for that. But God has done so much work in my life just sitting there. If I don't know the song or if I am just like, my throat's dry and I can't finish or whatever, I will just sit there quietly. And God has talked to me so much in those times and really graciously pointed that I was doing that out to me. You know, kind of just said, hey, when you do this, you're insulting me because you're mine and you're beating yourself up for no reason. That lady makes mistakes. That guy sitting next to you, that person in front of you, you're human. I made you that way on purpose. You need me and that's okay. But you can actually let go of those things. And so that was one of the things that's in my book, I know. And I think when I hit that spot and then other spots where I just shared in my book about, you know, what God had done, how along the way he just helped me let go of really habits that I had gained in the aftermath, right? Really just things I had gained because no one told me the opposite. No one had told me, you know, like you're valuable, you're important, you're, you know, the things you say, and it's okay to make mistakes because we can learn from our mistakes. And those are kind of all the things I've gone on to teach my kids. But because I didn't have anyone really backing that up, I gained all these really strange, really self-deprecating habits that God really was just so gracious and helped me along the way to let those things go and move on. And I wrote about that so much in my book. In every chapter really shared another thing that God had helped me work through that I did spend a lot of time just really crying over, you know, and then Joel would edit and he'd say, wow, I literally never knew that about you. You know, never realized how hard you were on yourself. And that's why, you know, you were successful, even though I didn't have the education to be doing what I was doing. But I just would work like crazy and had such high expectations, probably too high expectations for myself. But that I would literally like make sure that I, you know, wasn't going to make that mistake again. And, you know, we all, we're human, so we all make mistakes. But I think even just being able to be okay with some of those kinds of things, God really helped me in those places. So
I'm glad
that was big for me. Thanks. Yeah. Whew, me too. That's an exhausting way to live. Beating yourself up all day. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, Sarah Blakely, you know who she is? I think it's Sarah Blakely, Sarah Blake. Can't think of her name, but she's the woman who invented Spanx.
Oh.
You know Spanx, the women's shapewear.
Who doesn't know Spanx?
Right.
We all need Spanx. Yeah.
So she would have
It's a
shapewear.
women's shapewear.
No, he said we all need them. I'm not sure.
You know, women. Some. No.
At her dinner table, she recalled how her father would ask her, go around the table and ask, "What did you fail at today?"
Oh, wow.
And whoever had a fail, like they would all just hoot and holler for them because you tried something and you failed, but maybe tomorrow it'll be a success.
Wow.
So she grew up like just kept
Being
trying
okay
because she
with
wanted to have something great to say at the table.
Yeah.
Right? So she just kept trying and trying and trying.
What an incredible practice as a
Yeah.
family.
So even though you were coming up with things that you were mistakes or failing at, you kept trying.
Yeah. Yeah. I did definitely keep trying. In my family,
So I
with
would
my
rewrite that.
girls, yeah,
Rewrite that in your
right,
head.
exactly. My girls, I did keywords because I never wanted to like call them out in front of other people, but we'd have conversations at home, and then we'd go out, and I would, if I heard them say something that was like not in line with our kind of like family tenets, I would say a key word. And so my key word for them, if I heard them saying like, well, I suck at this, or I don't do this well, or da 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 da, because I would say to them, we don't say that. We say, well, I tried, but it didn't work out. Or I tried and I failed, but I'm going to try again. And so I would say Thomas Edison, because Thomas Edison failed thousands of times. And if he hadn't kept going, we would have no light bulbs. But yeah, so I thankfully, because of Jesus and what he did for me, went on to try to help my kids be okay with failing, because we do learn. We learn so much from failing, where if we were successful at everything, we might not try as hard as we have to when we know we've failed before. But anyways, our topic today has been relationships, and really how sexual abuse has either affected them or helped them in some ways. I think Joel and I had deeper conversations than we might have ever had. Not that I would sign up for being sexually abused, but I think that because of it and because of Jesus, we definitely had conversations we might not have ever had.
Beauty from ashes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you have anything else to add, Tom? Have anything else for our listeners? We're giving out hope and joy for sure, because my biggest goal for today's episode was definitely that for this episode that people would see that I just love your relationship is so great and so solid, and that you not only is it solid, but it's growing, and you really like feed into that. And I think that that's, your date nights, and it's so good that it is effort too, that you don't just like sit around and hope it's good.
No, you can't do that.
Yeah.
But I, when you were asking me, came to my mind was that I'm just going to be the husband that I want to be, or be the person that I think she needs me to be.
I love that.
And that's just what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And, and not really, I'm going to put the focus on myself and take it off her. I'll sign it, babe. I'll sign it.
No, I'm just writing down the things that I want you to be.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Like, what I want to, like, I want friendship. I want, conversation. Then I got to be a conversationalist. If I want friendship, then I got to be her friend. I got to find out what it is that makes her happy.
I think that's good.
Go
That's
do the
key.
things that are there. Her being happy. I'm sorry. Her being happy is me being happy.
Yeah. I think that's a great conversation just about in relationships. Our goal, if it's about the other person,
Right.
it helps it really last. Because if it's about for you to be what Kellie needs, then your motivations are different. The way you behave is different, because you're not going to behave as badly, I would hope, if knowing that you're there to fulfill her needs,
Right.
not her to fulfill your needs. And it goes into that puts you in a different light when you're trying to meet someone else's needs instead of get from them everything that we need, because we know that the only person that can actually fill all our needs is God.
Amen.
Is the Lord.
Right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being with us here today. We are Aftermath, overcoming what's left behind from sexual abuse. Did you know that the average is about 1 in 3 people have been sexually abused? That means that even if you personally have not been sexually abused, you certainly know someone that has been. Here at Aftermath, overcoming what's left behind, we're working to start and continue this conversation. Will you please like, subscribe, and share the link to our episode so that we can help all those in your circle of influence? We know and truly believe that everyone can find hope and joy in the aftermath. We want to say thank you to our sponsors, Handfuls.com, where they offer a game changer for moms during mealtime with their baby feeding placemat. Go grab one for your kiddo at handfullz.com. Also, thank you to QuickSurvive.world, where you can purchase their waterproof fire starter kits for your next camping trip, bonfire, or to keep in your emergency prep kit. That's QuickSurvive.world, QuickSurvive.world. We here at Aftermath want to send a big shout out and thank you to Christ Community Church in Taunton, Massachusetts for the use of their studio. If you're in the southern Massachusetts area, you'll want to check them out as they learn to live like Jesus and help others do the same. You can find more information about this amazing church at cccfamily.com.